Whatever that thing was, it didn't belong to this world, and it knew they were watching. Welcome to Strange Encounters, where the veil between the known and the unknown grows thin. Tonight, we journey into the unexplained, with stories that challenge what we believe to be real and force us to look twice at the world around us. Turn your lanterns low and keep your minds open, because sometimes the strangest encounters happen when we least expect them. I was stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base just outside Great Falls, Montana, fall of 1955, a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind of day when the wind rustles the grass, the mountains stand still, and the only sound in the air is the hum of radar equipment. I was at my usual post manning the communications and radar. Every blip, every signal passed through my hands. Routine, predictable, almost boring. Until that day, until I saw something that didn't belong. It was a single blip coming in fast from the north. Too fast, too clean. No transponder, no friendly radio chatter, just a bright echo, moving south at a speed I couldn't comprehend. My pulse quickened. I radioed it in. Unidentified aircraft heading into restricted airspace. The order came through almost immediately. Scramble 4 jets. I guided them in. The pilots could see it now. Their voices crackled over the radio, disbelief and awe mixed in every word. "It's a disc," one pilot said. "Silver, reflecting the sunlight, moving like it's floating." I remember feeling my stomach tighten. This wasn't training. This wasn't a test. And yet, here we were, part of something that no one was supposed to understand. Then, it happened. "We're locking on. Weapon systems are dead," another pilot shouted. "All 4 jets, systems failing. We can't fire." The radio was chaos. I tried to stay calm, tried to follow protocol, but inside, I was terrified. 4 jets, armed and ready, completely powerless. And the object, whatever it was, just moved. Smooth, precise, faster than anything we knew. Then, almost instantly, it disappeared. From radar, from sight, gone. Within the hour, we were summoned to a small conference room on base. The pilots, the commanding officer, and waiting there, 2 men. Civilians, but something about them wasn't normal. No uniforms, no insignia, just an intensity that demanded attention. One spoke first, calm, precise. "Gentlemen, what you saw today never happened. You are not to discuss it. Not with each other, not with anyone outside this room." The other leaned forward, voice low but sharp. "If you do, you will be court-martialed. Dishonorably discharged. Do you understand?" We all nodded, silent. The weight of their presence pressed down on us. No one spoke a word, and just like that, the meeting ended. The radar logs, classified, hidden, vanished. And the pilots, the officers, myself, we carried it in silence. For decades, I kept it to myself. Not out of fear alone, but because it was too strange, too unreal. To talk about it would have made me question my own mind, and yet I never forgot. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see that radar blip, the smooth, impossible motion of a silver disc, the panic in the voices over the radio. I tried to understand it rationally. Maybe a new aircraft, maybe a technical glitch, but nothing fit. Nothing could explain what we witnessed that day. Years later, long after my service ended, long after I retired, I sat with my son, watching a documentary about UFOs, seeing accounts of strange events across the country. Something inside me shifted. I realized I could no longer carry the story alone. I told him everything, every detail I could remember. The radar echo, the jets, the failure of their systems, the meeting with the men in black, the fear, the silence. Even now, decades later, I can see it as clearly as the day it happened. That perfect, round radar echo, hovering for just seconds before it disappeared, and I still remember the voice on the radio, cutting through the static. "We've lost control. It's just gone." I spent my life wondering, what did we see that day, and who or what made sure it remained a secret? It was the summer of 1960, somewhere along the northeastern coast of the United States. We were spending the week at our family's little vacation home, a quiet place by the Atlantic, where the air always smelled of salt and pine. That afternoon, I was in the front yard with my best friend, tossing a ball back and forth. My sister sat in the driveway with her boyfriend, listening to the radio in my mother's car. Mom was inside the kitchen washing dishes, humming softly to the music. That's when it happened. The light dimmed just slightly. A shadow drifted across the yard, and everything went still. We both looked up, expecting maybe a low-flying plane, but what we saw wasn't like anything we'd ever seen before. It was a massive metallic disc, spinning slowly, moving silently toward the ocean. No sound, no exhaust, just a smooth, deliberate glide. It passed directly over the house and vanished toward the shoreline. My sister and her boyfriend jumped from the car, running around the house after us. We could hear Mom shouting from the kitchen window, but she wasn't calling to us, she was calling about it. She had seen it too, right through the glass as she stood at the sink. The disc had dropped lower, hovering just above the surface of the ocean. By the time we reached the backyard, it was there, hanging in the air like something alive. It was enormous, maybe half a football field across, metallic gray, gleaming in the sun, turning in place. It hovered so low we could see the reflection of sunlight off the waves beneath it, and still not a sound. No wind, no vibration, just the quiet hiss of the ocean. Mom came outside, dish towel still in her hands. She stood beside us, staring in disbelief. Then a police car pulled up. The officer walked into the yard, and all he could do was whisper, "What is that?" For several minutes, the six of us just stood there, 4 kids, 1 mother, and 1 police officer, watching this impossible craft turn slowly above the Atlantic. Then it began to change. The rotation picked up speed, first slowly, then faster and faster. The edges blurred. The air around it shimmered, like heat rising from pavement. It lifted slightly, tilted upward, and then it was gone, completely. Not a trace left behind. We all stood there staring at the empty sky. Even the officer looked pale, lost for words. What we saw that day never left me, and it changed my friend's life forever. He grew obsessed with understanding what we'd witnessed, went on to study engineering, chasing an answer through science and physics. He once told me his theory, that the way the craft spun before vanishing might hold the key. He said there are 2 forces in spinning motion, centrifugal pushing outward and centripetal pulling inward. Maybe that craft wasn't flying away at all. Maybe it was collapsing inward, using centripetal force to fold space around itself, slipping through a wormhole, a shortcut through space-time itself. That, he believed, is how they travel, crossing impossible distances not by speed, but by bending the space between. I still think about that day. The sun on the water, the quiet hum of summer air, and that silent spinning disk, hovering just above the Atlantic, as if waiting for us to understand. There's a place on the rugged northeastern coast of England where the land reaches out toward the cold gray waters of the North Sea like a spine of some enormous sleeping creature. This narrow, rocky peninsula is called Filey Brigg, a natural formation stretching almost a mile out from the North Yorkshire coast. Its cliffs tower some 60 feet above the crashing waves. Seabirds circle overhead. The tide rolls in and out, carving small inlets and hidden gullies between the jagged stones. But for centuries, people have whispered a different story about this place, not of geology, but of monsters. To many local people, Filey Brigg wasn't just another headland. In old folktales, the Brigg was said to have been shaped not by nature, but by something far darker. One legend claims that the devil himself created the rocky spur, some say to lure ships toward their doom. On moonless nights, mariners spoke of strange lights near the Brigg, only to find their vessels dashed against the rocks. But the most famous story tells of a colossal dragon, slain long ago by the villagers of Filey. According to this tale, the very bones of that dragon hardened over centuries, forming the long, jagged ridge that still stretches into the sea today. This wasn't a dainty winged dragon of fairy stories. In local imagination, it was an amphibious, scaly creature, big enough to terrify an entire village. Fishermen avoided the Brigg at night, claiming something massive lurked in the waters there. One of the oldest recorded versions of the legend involves a particularly clever trick. The villagers, tired of living in fear, decided to outwit the beast rather than confront it head-on. They baked a huge amount of dense, sticky Yorkshire cake known as parkin, a kind of gingerbread made with treacle and oats. They piled the parkin near the gully, a tidal inlet that runs down the center of the Brigg, a place where the dragon was said to rest during the day. Lured by the smell of sugar and spice, the monster devoured the cake. But parkin has a way of sticking to your teeth, and even a dragon, it seems, wasn't immune. The story goes that the creature's jaws gummed up so badly it panicked, slithering into the sea to wash the sweet mess from its mouth. That was the villager's chance. Whether through sword, spear, or sheer misfortune, the beast died in the water, and its corpse became the rocky ridge we see today. Another version replaces the villagers with a local hero, a tailor oddly named Billy Biter. He's said to have tricked the dragon in much the same way. Over time, the cake itself became known as parkin, and every sticky bite was a reminder of the day a tailor and a pastry defeated a dragon. Unlike many medieval legends, the Filey dragon story lingers into recorded history. There are marriage records into the 18th century mentioning local families, names like Ralph Parkin and Mary Brumfitt, whose story became intertwined with the dragon tale. According to this later version, Mary lured the beast with her famous cake, and rather than being slain in battle, the dragon simply ate itself to death. A less heroic ending perhaps, but one that fits the humor often found in Yorkshire folklore. Filey Brigg's dragon might have remained a quaint local legend, something told in pubs or schoolrooms, if not for what came next. In the early 20th century, stories began to emerge of strange creatures in lakes and seas around Britain. This was the era when tales from the Scottish Highlands, particularly reports from Loch Ness, captured the public imagination. Newspapers were hungry for monsters, and Filey, it seemed, had one of its own. On March 31st, 1934, the Daily Telegraph published a story that sent shivers down the coast. The headline read, "Coast Guard meets monster by night. Eyes like saucers, 2 huge humps." The article recounted 2 separate encounters with something extraordinary near the Brigg. The first came from a group of 4 fishermen. Out at sea, about 3 miles from shore, they spotted what they described as a huge unknown animal. Their claims were met with skepticism, and the story might have died there, if not for the second, more dramatic sighting. Just days later, on a dark, moonless night, a Coast Guard named Wilkinson Herbert was walking along the rocky outcrop of Filey Brigg. He reported hearing a deep, guttural growl ahead of him. "Like a dozen dogs," he said. Flicking on his torch, Herbert found himself face to face with something out of a nightmare. Only 6 yards away, a massive serpentine neck rose 8 feet into the air. The creature's head was enormous, its eyes like saucers, glowing eerily in the beam of his light. Herbert estimated the neck alone was a yard thick, the mouth a foot wide. Below, he could make out a long dark shape, perhaps 30 feet in length, with 2 large humps and 4 short limbs ending in wide, flipper-like feet. It stared at him, he stared back. The seasoned Coast Guard admitted that fear nearly rooted him to the spot, but instead of fleeing, he picked up stones and threw them at the creature. It growled, a low, powerful sound that carried over the rocks, then turned, moving with a side-to-side rolling gait, and slid into the water. Herbert scrambled up a nearby cliff, hoping for a better view. From the top, he saw two shining eyes out at sea, reflecting his torchlight some 300 yards offshore, and then it was gone. Herbert's description of the Filey big creature was strikingly similar to the so-called lake monsters reported elsewhere: a long neck, large body, flippers, and glowing eyes. In fact, the account was later mentioned in Tim Dinsdale's 1966 book, The Leviathans, one of the early compendiums of alleged sea and lake monster sightings. The Filey case stood out not only because of its details, but because this sighting occurred on land, a rarity in cryptozoological lore, where most encounters happen far out at sea or in deep lakes. So what was the Filey creature? A dragon? A remnant from prehistoric seas? Perhaps some kind of undiscovered marine reptile? Or was it simply a trick of darkness and tide, magnified by fear and imagination? Some modern researchers suggested a misidentified marine animal, a large seal, perhaps, or a basking shark stranded near the shore. Others see in Herbert's account the enduring shape of the old Filey dragon legend, reborn in a new century of monster hunting. But for locals, the tale has always been more than just a cryptid sighting. It's part of their cultural landscape, a story told at dusk when the sea mist rolls in, when waves crash hard against the rocks, and the shadows seem just a little too long. Today, Filey Brigg remains a place of wild beauty, a destination for birdwatchers, anglers, and hikers. Yet even now, when the tide is low and the fog creeps across the rocks, you might hear someone whisper, "Mind the gully, that's where the dragon used to sleep." Whether it was a monster of flesh and blood, a misidentified creature, or simply a story passed down through generations, the dragon of Filey Brigg has never quite gone away. It lives on in the name of the cake, in the old parish stories, in the trembling voice of a Coast Guard on a dark February night in 1934, and perhaps in the cold waters beneath the cliffs, waiting. In the winter of 1922, the MacDonald family, Alexander, Janet, and their 16-year-old adopted daughter, Mary Ellen, experienced a series of unexplained and terrifying events at their farmhouse in Caledonia Mills, Antigonish County, Nova Scotia. The most alarming of these were fires that seemed to ignite spontaneously throughout the house, appearing on walls, wet towels, and even patches of wallpaper. Despite the family's careful attention, no source of heat could ever be found, and no intruder was ever seen. In total, more than 30 mysterious fires were reported, each one leaving the family more fearful and bewildered. The strange occurrences were not confined to the house. In the barn, livestock were often found agitated, moved to different stalls, or even locked outside with no logical explanation. Perhaps the most eerie phenomenon involved the horses' tails, which were frequently found carefully braided as if by invisible hands. Local folklore suggested that this was the work of the Fae, mischievous spirits from Irish and Scottish traditions who were known to meddle in human affairs and leave subtle, sometimes playful, signs of their presence. As the incidents continued, the story attracted attention far beyond Nova Scotia. One visitor was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the famous author and creator of Sherlock Holmes. Intrigued by the reports of poltergeist activity and mysterious fires, Doyle traveled to the farmhouse to investigate firsthand. His presence lent a measure of prestige and curiosity to the case, as the man who had penned one of the world's most celebrated detectives sought to uncover the truth behind real-life mysteries. Following Doyle, parapsychologist Walter Franklin Prince, a research officer for the American Society for Psychical Research, conducted his own investigation. Prince concluded that the fires and disturbances were likely caused by Mary Ellen herself in a dissociated state, noting that the burns never appeared higher than 5 feet, the approximate height of the teen, and that traces of inflammable liquid were found in the home. Prince maintained that the fires were undoubtedly set by human hands, though he suggested that Mary Ellen may have been unaware of her actions. Mary Ellen herself insisted she had never set the fires or caused the disturbances, accusing Prince of fibbing and expressing fear at the thought of committing such acts. To those who knew her, she was a bright, cheerful teen, entirely incapable of deliberately causing such chaos. The contrast between the family's perception of Mary Ellen and the investigators' conclusions added to the mystery and controversy surrounding the events. Eventually, the McDonald family moved away from the farmhouse, and the house itself eventually burned down. Yet, the story of the Mary Ellen Spook Farm endures, combining elements of poltergeist activity, inexplicable fires, and the subtle touch of the fae in braided horse tails. It remains one of Nova Scotia's most compelling tales of the supernatural, a story that continues to fascinate and chill those who hear it, a testament to the mysterious and unseen forces that may dwell just beyond our perception. Vision of a monster or phantom. 2 men and a woman saw it near Copenhagen, a huge white creature which moved silently and with lightning speed. The sight made their hair curl. That was the headline printed in the Watertown Daily Times on May 25, 1900. 2 men and a woman saw it near Copenhagen, a huge white creature which moved silently and with lightning speed. The sight made their hair curl. This was not a rumor whispered in the night, not a campfire story told decades later. This was a real article printed on newsprint 125 years ago. And tonight, we're going to look past the modern legends and go straight back to the original source. It's a calm Monday evening in late May 1900. The village of Copenhagen, New York, is a quiet farming community surrounded by open fields and winding country roads. J.D. Dryden and Homer Ward are returning home from Deer River in a horse-drawn buggy. The road is dim and silent except for the steady rhythm of hooves. Then, Dryden notices something, a large white object in the field near the farm of Charles Bonney. He peers through the darkness. The shape is motionless, but wrong. Too large, too strange. He points it out to Ward, and Ward sees it too. The newspaper called it a vision, but what they described sounds solid, real. A gigantic animal at rest. Ward, perhaps braver or more curious, climbs down from the buggy, crosses the fence, and walks toward the thing. The shape doesn't stir, not until he's right up on it. He tosses a stone. The creature erupts into motion. It moves like a streak of lightning. A jolt, similar to an electric shock, courses through Ward's body. Terrified, he runs back to the buggy, and the men flee home. To understand how unsettling this moment must have been, it helps to imagine rural northern New York in 1900. No electric streetlights, no flashlights, only lanterns and candles, sparse farmhouses separated by dark fields, and no cars, just horse and buggy. An unknown white creature, silent and fast as lightning, would have felt like something otherworldly in that context. But the story doesn't end there. Inside the house, the men recount what happened. Nancy Klein, who lives there, decides that they should investigate again. This time, they bring a lantern. As the 3 step out into the night, the fields are cloaked in darkness. Crickets chirp. Every sound seems amplified. And there it is again, the white figure. This time, it's sitting on its haunches in the middle of the road. They raise the lantern, its weak light flickering in the breeze. The creature turns, steps over the fence, and vanishes into the night. 3 witnesses, 3 perspectives. Ward claims it had horns. Dryden insists it had a tail as large as a man's body. Nancy Klein swears she heard it snort. They don't claim glowing eyes, wings, or claws, just a strange, silent, horned creature moving with unnatural speed. And the newspaper emphasizes all 3 were people of truth and veracity in the community. Modern accounts of what's now called the Copenhagen Devil have grown far more elaborate over the years. Some claim glowing red eyes, others say it left claw marks or trampled fences. A few even describe it as demonic. But the original 1900 article mentions none of that. No glowing eyes, no screaming, no attack. Just a mysterious white phantom, horns and tail, and 3 frightened locals. That is how legends evolve. A single newspaper article becomes a rural legend, then a cryptid, then something larger than life. The final line, "The sight made their hair curl," might sound poetic today, but in 1900, it was a way of saying the witnesses were truly shaken. They described it as silent, swift, and terrifying. So what was it? A pale bull or albino animal wandering loose from a nearby farm? A trick of the moonlight and nerves? Or something more mysterious? The electric shock sensation reported by Ward is curious. Some have speculated about static discharge, animal defense mechanisms, or even psychosomatic fear response. But we'll never know. The paper ran no follow-up. No other sightings were recorded in the following days. The Copenhagen Devil appeared once, then disappeared from history. 3 witnesses, 1 white creature, a May night in 1900. Over a century later, this story still lingers, half in print, half in legend. Was it a monster, a phantom, or something far more ordinary cloaked in mystery and fear? We went back to the original newspaper to strip away the embellishments, and what remains is a chilling, simple mystery that refuses to be explained. What do you think the Copenhagen Devil was? Let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the edge of the unknown. And if you've had an encounter of your own, something you can't explain, fill out our Easy Story submission form, send us an email, or tell us in the comments. Your story might be featured in a future episode. Until next time, keep watching the skies and never stop searching for the truth.